What's going on, everybody? It's Matt with the FF Mediators, and I'm joined by my co-host, Coach here. We're going to walk through some Dynasty buys and sells, what we're going to do with these players, what their value is right now in Dynasty leagues. Really excited to talk about some of these names because there's some news even happening as recently as today. So, Coach, how are we doing, man?
Man, doing good, doing good. We do have a lot of news. It's crazy. Every day there's something new, and you got to take that into account constantly.
Yeah, these values are changing every day. We're going to try and stay on top of it and keep you guys apprised of what we see and what's going on. So if you're here, jump in the comments. Let us know if you want us to discuss another player. We're going to walk through about 6 different guys here and then see what the chat lets us go into a little bit more maybe. And we'll just get right to it, Coach. Let's start with Breece Hall. We've got the running back for the New York Jets, only 24. He's, been moving up in drafts here recently. Pete and I talked about that a little bit earlier in the week, but my question is where's his value right now? We've got news from the coaching staff talking about how they're going to use all 3 running backs in the backfield to kind of create a 3-headed monster. And then on top of that, Coach, there's also some rumors that Breece Hall could be moved, and they make a play for Ashton Genty with the 7th overall pick. My question is it a buy or is it a sell window? Coach, what's your thoughts?
Well, I do think obviously Breece Hall's value is lower now than it was this time a year ago, without a doubt. Depends on if you're a believer in Breece Hall, like I know you are a little bit when it comes to this. Like his value is so low that now's a good time to make a play to go buy him. But if I'm a Breece Hall owner, I'm probably going to look to move off of him if I can and sell him if possible.
Yeah, for me, I think I might be looking to buy, and just because the rumor mill is going to kind of impact his value. We'll have to see what happens, but I do think that people are going to overreact to this news. My understanding of it is there's nothing concrete. The idea that it's going to be a committee backfield is not uncommon to what we already see in the NFL every single week in most backfields. So Braylon Allen doesn't necessarily scare me. He's definitely going to have his workload, but Breece Hall, we're just 2 years removed where he was RB4 overall, scored 250 fantasy points. He had 95 targets. Now, I was trying to figure out if Justin Fields' check down rate is out there, and it's a little bit difficult just because he had so many games where he just appeared and wasn't actually the starter and was just in some running packages, but he actually had a decent check down rate, and it was above that of Aaron Rodgers. So if that just ticks up even slightly, he's got an incredible value in the receiving game. So I'm actually interested in if I can go and buy him. And when we look at this draft class, yes, the running backs are absolutely talented and this class is loaded. But if you're sitting at the back end of the first round and we get 3 or 4 guys that get drafted pretty early, you're not going to get him at the 108. You know what I mean? You're going to have to make a play for an established back. And I think Breece Hall might be that guy, especially given now that people are kind of starting to fade him.
Yeah, and I think if I'm a Breece Hall owner, I'm sort of just sitting there and waiting to see what I can get for him. Like if I can get a decent return, then I would be willing to move him. I guess my question to you is, what would that return look like? Like what would you be willing to give up to get Breece Hall?
I think his value is going to be somewhere between a first and a second at least. You're going to have to get a plus on top of that. This is kind of where you're going to have to play the game with the news right now. And I think if you have that 107, 108, and you're a running back needy team, I would offer that and maybe a future first or a second and just a random dart throw piece to the other side just to see if you can capitalize off that news. Because there's a lot of love out there for Braylon Allen. I know Tyler, who's with us, he likes both of these guys, and he thinks both of them are going to have a role in the offense. So I think there's a way to capitalize on that and go make a move. But, Coach, if you were offered, let's say, the 105 and the 203, would you be interested?
Oh yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, how could you not consider that, especially coming off the news that we're hearing right now? I just think now, sometimes when it comes to these guys, it's just the market fluctuates so much that now's a great time to make a play for him, and the owner is a little bit scared too, so there's a chance he's willing to give him up right here as well. So I mean, that's what makes things so interesting this time of year.
Yeah, and we'll see how it all plays out. But I think given the way that everything's trending, he's kind of turning into a buy for me, which is interesting because normally I wouldn't say that. But I'm looking to capitalize off this news just based on all the uncertainty going around. If I can definitely get some, cheap value off of that. But we've got Pete in here. He says, "What's up, fellas? How's it going, Pete? Thanks for jumping in." We've also got Joe who tuned in. Thanks for being in here, Joel. So we'll keep going through. If you guys have any players you want us to talk about, throw them in the comments. We'll start going through those. But let's just jump to our next guy, Coach, and let's talk about Jalen Hurts. Coming off a Super Bowl win with the Eagles, the tush push, could it be banned? I don't know. There's a lot of things to talk about with his dynasty value. And I think we're kind of getting to the point of where we need to talk about what we're going to do with him. So, Coach, I'm going to kick it to you. What are you doing with Jalen Hurts on your fantasy teams?
Yeah, it's definitely all related to the tush push, right? 32 of Hurts' 54 rushing touchdowns in his career are tush push touchdowns. I think the last 2 years he's combined for 24 tush push touchdowns. So a lot of that comes back to what you think is going to happen with the tush push. Obviously, Hurts is an elite fantasy player as it stands currently. If something was to change with that play, then that would change drastically. I think some of it comes back to right now his value is extremely high, at least in the dynasty world. You can get a lot for Hurts. Like I was messing around with this the other day because me and you are Hurts owners and we were looking at possibly moving him. You can get Herbert and Chase Brown for Hurts in a 4th-round pick. If the tush push gets banned, you got to feel a lot better about that. Like he goes from, a top 3 quarterback to somewhere between 10 and 15 if the tush push gets banned and those touchdowns go away at least, or if those rushing touchdowns get cut in half. So what's your thinking on Hurts, Matt?
Yeah, I think you make an excellent point there, Coach, is if it gets banned, his value takes a hit. Now, when we look at his passing touchdowns, it's not anything really to run away with. I mean, he had 18 this past season, 23 the year before that, 22 the year before that, and 16 before that. So he's not going to carry the day with the passing work. It's the rushing work. He has had more than 10 rushing touchdowns every single year since 2021. Last year, 14. The year before that, 15. The year before that, 13. It is a ton of rushing upside for him, and a lot of it comes at the goal line because of the tush push. So that's definitely going to be something that would impact his value. Now, you could do a traditional QB sneak, sure, but if they go away and you've got Saquon in the backfield, there's nothing wrong with them just handing it off to him and run it through the middle on the goal line. So I think his value is definitely in jeopardy here because it's just so heavily inflated by those goal line carries. And like I said, the passing work just isn't there for me, not enough for me to feel comfortable that I can just roll him out there. You mentioned his value. It's at probably about 3 future firsts if you're just going to trade him for picks straight up. But if we're talking about picks in this current class, it's probably the 101 and the 102. What'd you say, Coach?
Yeah, probably. And, just a couple of trades that come across keep trade cut. When you look at the dynasty calculator, what comes out to fairly even. You could trade Hurts for Caleb Williams and David Montgomery. That looks like it's even, depending on how you feel about Caleb. Obviously, he's younger. Drake May and Najee Harris. I mean, some of those things you can make a play for a younger guy, depending on how you feel about that as well. Obviously, there's some risk in that. But there's a lot of risk in waiting around to see what happens to the tush push too. Because if the tush push gets banned, then you're going to be, stuck holding the bag basically.
Yeah, so I think we're both kind of in the same boat of we're going to be shopping Jalen Hurts around, seeing what we can get, just given the uncertainty of the tush push and kind of the lacking in the passing game. I mean, he's certainly got great wide receivers there, but there's always drama between him and A.J. Brown and what's going to happen going forward. I don't know, but what I do know is I'm not going to rely on Jalen Hurts to be a pocket passer. I mean, he can get it done, and he's proven that. He's won a Super Bowl, but in fantasy terms, I'm not comfortable with him being my QB1 as a true pocket passer if that rushing upside is truly clipped like it could be. And that's not to say he's going to be a bad player because he's going to score a bunch of fantasy points. So don't hear what we're not saying. But it's just time to start looking to see if there's somebody else out there that you might be able to go and get.
Well, look, Hurts is a good football player, right? He's a good quarterback. Most people would love for him to be the quarterback of their football team. That being said, if something happens with the tush push, then his fantasy value, tanks drastically. So if you're going to move him, now's the time to do so.
Yeah, totally agree. Well, let's jump to Joe's question here, Coach. He says, "Is Brandon Ayuk a buy? He's looking to upgrade for a wide receiver three." Well, I'm glad that you recognize him as being a wide receiver three because that's probably a good place to start. Of where is he valued? For me, I'm not gonna lie, I am interested. I mean, he's 27 years old. There's lots of issues going on in San Fran, but I think he's a little bit cheap right now, and he might be worth it. I think you could probably offer an early second or a mid second, and you might be able to close the deal just because of everything that's happening out in San Francisco and where people's heads are on him. There's a lot of question marks, and I think it's something that I'd be willing to take a chance on if I'm looking to buy a wide receiver three for pretty cheap. What about you, Coach?
Yeah, this time last year, I was screaming that he's overrated, and I still think that was definitely true then. Now his market has came down a lot, so he's definitely a guy you can go out and get much cheaper today than you could this time a year ago. So that's something I would be willing to consider.
Yeah, and he even asks, what are maybe some trades that we've seen? I don't know if I've seen a trade actually in any of my leagues for Ayuk here recently, but like I said, I think an early second or a mid second is a good starting point. Some people are going to want a first. I probably wouldn't pay a first because, like you said, you're getting a wide receiver three. But, Coach, let me ask you some names here. If you could move, let's say, Jaden Reed for Ayuk, would you be interested in that?
Yeah, I would consider that. I mean, I think that's fairly even, depending on how you feel about both guys.
Okay. What about maybe a guy like Jalen McMillan in a late third?
Oh, I'd rather have Dylan McMillan. That's how I feel when
Interesting.
it comes to IU myself.
Okay.
It's like
Well,
I like McMillan's upside a lot.
sure. I don't hate it. They're pretty close in value. I'm just kind of thinking of some names
Yeah.
off the top of my head.
Mhm.
So let us know, Joe, who's on your team, and we're happy to give you some advice of who you might be able to move or who might be available to go get a guy like Brandon Ayuk. But let's carry on because here's some names that are going to be kind of in that same territory, Coach. So let's walk through those first, and let's start with D.K. Metcalf. D.K. Metcalf is definitely kind of been interesting here, being a move to the Pittsburgh Steelers. There's a lot to like and a lot to not like. I'm not sure that he's ever going to get back to that wide receiver one production. Obviously, it's a fresh start for him in Pittsburgh, but it's been years since he's had a true wide receiver one season, Coach, and you've kind of been the trumpet of this for the last several years. So I'll let you go first, but is he still a sell for you?
Oh yeah, absolutely a sell. I think he's more of a sell now than ever before. DK is a good player. I do think he's a solid player. I just don't think he's ever the top flight guy that everyone makes him out to be. Definitely now going in Pittsburgh, I really feel like his production's gonna drop off a little bit. Even though he's still a solid player. Most people would love to have him on their team, also similar to Hurts. But at the same time, now's a great time to try to move him because people are hype about the move. Some people love it. I'm not a big fan of it. I don't feel great about it. I'd be looking to cash out on this if possible.
Yeah, I think I would be too. I mean, he's 27. He's pairing up with George Pickens, which is an interesting combination because they're almost clones of each other. They
Mhm.
do a lot of the same things and have kind of the same flaws. There's currently not a quarterback in Pittsburgh. So there's a lot of just issues that would just spark me to say, I think I'm going to try and remove him or try and, retool my roster and see if I can get something new. I mean, his value right now is akin to the 112 to the 202. So we're not too far off from where Brandon Ayuk is, who we were just talking about. But, given the situation in Pittsburgh, I think I would be looking to move DK Metcalf if I could.
Yeah, I just think in general, the world thinks DK is a top 5 wide receiver without thinking about it and looking at the numbers at times. 22 in half PPR, he was wide receiver 18. 23, he was 16. Last year, he was wide receiver 32. Like, I just think you can get more for him than the production you're going to get in return if you keep him.
Yeah, totally agree. And I think a lot of times we're hanging our hat on that 2020 season where he had 83 catches for 1,300
Mhm.
yards and 10 touchdowns. Outside of that, it's been disappointment. I mean, in 2021, he was wide receiver 11 with 12 touchdowns, but 66 catches last year, 66 the year before, just barely around 1,000 yards each season. So he's not necessarily moving the needle. Like you said, he's a good player, but he's not going to be a guy that can be your wide receiver one. And a lot of people still view him as that. So capitalize while you can, because he's 27 and he's going into not a great situation. We'll see if, Pittsburgh drafts someone, but there's just so much uncertainty that I'm not ready to tie that to my roster.
Yeah, and you got to know this hurts Matt to say, because no one's been a bigger D.K.Metcalf fan than Matt has.
Yeah, I was hopeful a lot of times he could bounce back to that previous form. I mean, he's just an athletic freak, but it's just frankly not there. And it's not going to be there in Pittsburgh for me. So I would be looking to move. I mean, if you could get anything like the 112 to the 202, I'd be absolutely satisfied with that. What about you, Coach? Would you be happy with any of those picks?
Oh, yeah. Anything late first, early second, I would 100% consider that for DK.
Yeah, I think you can get that done. I mean, I'm currently in one of the leagues that we're both in. I own DK, and I'm trying to currently move him for a running back. So if I can get that done maybe during the show, I will certainly share that. But so far, it's not there yet. But I'm really looking forward to getting him off my roster. All right, well, let's jump to our next player here, Coach, and let's talk about RomeOdunze. Let's get into the Bears offense a little bit. Lots of transition in Chicago this offseason. We've got Ben Johnson coming in, so the offense looks to be much better. They have heavy investments on the offensive line, basically entirely retooling the interior offensive line. Keenan Allen's now gone. He's only 22 years old. I think this is time. It's RomeOdunze season for me, and I'm going to be buying him anywhere and everywhere I can, which is very difficult because I think you might have him in a league or two. I know some other Chicago fans that we have in leagues have him. So what are you doing with Rome, Coach? I'm interested to hear your take.
Man, I love Rome. I think Ben Johnson's going to help get the most out of Rome. I think the offense is going to improve. Obviously, the verdict's still out on Caleb Williams and how good he can be. I think we're going to find out under Ben Johnson here quickly. That being said, I do think they've got a lot of investment here in RomeOdunze, and they're going to get him the ball, and they're going to go out of their way to get him the ball and get him more touches, especially compared to last year. Like I without a doubt would be trying to buy Rome if I could. I do not have enough shares of him. If I can get them all, I would.
Yeah, I think, like you said, if they could get the ball in his hands more, they're definitely going to try. I mean, it was a disappointing year one for him, no way around it. 101 targets, 54 receptions for 730 yards, only 3 touchdowns. But the Chicago Bears they were in turmoil most of the year. Caleb was running for his life at all times. And you could even argue he was trying to do too much. But I think this is kind of where you see the new coaching staff come in and kind of revamp this offense and make a lot of changes that will be positive for RomeOdunze himself. And, with Keenan Allen gone, there's no denying that Allen had a bunch of targets and a bunch of workload with Caleb. So we'll see if Rome can take over, but he certainly projects to be a guy that's going to see an uptick in targets, an uptick in receptions, certainly yards, and probably even touchdowns.
Well, you saw an offense last year was based around 1 million tunnel screens and bubble screens for DJ Moore. So you're definitely going to see more play action, more balls going down the field, intermediate and deep routes, looking to try to get guys like Rome the ball in space. And I think he's going to capitalize on this new offense.
Yeah, so since we're both buying Rome, that begs the question, what are we willing to pay for RomeOdunze? And when we look at his trade value, I think he's going to fall somewhere between, the 104 to the 107. When you look at wide receiver names that are around him, it's guys like Jordan Addison, Chris Olave, George Pickens, and Zay Flowers, like maybe even Devontae Smith. So there's a lot of established names there, but given the upside of RomeOdunze and his attachment to Caleb Williams, I think I'm going to take Rome over just about all those guys.
Well, let me ask this then, Matt. How do you feel about Ted McMillan, Matthew Golden compared to Rome? Like, would you rather have Rome or would you rather have those guys? So if you're sitting and picking at 104 to 107, that's where you're at.
Yeah, that's a great question. And a lot of that's going to depend on landing spot. We'll see where they fall in the draft. Most people have Tet being the wide receiver one here recently. I've been talking about how I think Golden might be the better player and be the true wide receiver one of this class. If Golden went to, trying to think of a landing spot, but if he went to, let's just say he went to New England, I would be very interested in the guy attached to Drake May. Now, I don't think that's going to happen. Tet McMillan could go to New England, but I think I'm still a little more interested in Rome. I'm not quite sure Tet projects to be a true one for a team. I think he's going to be a good player, and that's not necessarily something that we should hate too much because there's plenty of guys that are 2s or 1Bs on their team that produce. Guys like T. Higgins. Devontae Smith is a good example of that too, and they're definitely fantasy assets, but I think Rome is just a guy that has so much upside because like you said, DJ Moore's production, a lot of it is just based on bubble screens, little hitches, just quick passes, and it's not to say he's a bad player, but I do think his value is just a little bit inflated.
Yeah, I'm with you. The landing spot of those guys certainly matters. But at the same time, I would much rather have Rome than Tet McMillan. That's just me at the moment. I would rather have Rome than Matthew Golden, although I would, landing spot will matter there too a little bit. But I just really like Rome's upside. At minimum, to me, that's a coin flip. So if you can do it, then you might as well do it if Rome is a guy that interests you.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly a guy that both of us are trying to buy. If I had some of those guys we've mentioned, I'd be looking to flip them into Rome, and you might be able to get a plus on top of that. Like, now's the perfect time to take Chris Olave and try and go get RomeOdunze in my eyes. If you got a pick, and like you said, you're a little uncertain on this wide receiver class, and there's reason to be. You should be. Then I would be interested in getting established production and getting a guy that I know is committed to an offense, is going to have a role. And again, a new coaching staff with an established quarterback, new offensive line to give him more time to throw the ball.
Yep, I 100% agree.
Well, let's jump to Ryan's question here, Coach. He says, in Dynasty Superflex, would you send Breece, Etienne, and Ayuk or Olave for Genty, or would you be wanting to see the landing spot first? Now, that's certainly a haul when we're talking about Breece and an Ayuk, Olave, and then an Etienne level player. So this is certainly a pretty big package for the 101, Coach. My gut says I would maybe hold the package, and that's tough to say because I do like Genty. Landing spot is going to matter. If he went to the Bears, I mean, that's a great landing spot. Would you be willing to send Breece, Etienne, and Ayuk or Olave for that?
Yeah. I think I'm probably going to hold the package too, but at the same time, I would have to think long and hard about it because I do not believe much in Ayuk or Olave, to be honest. Etienne doesn't feel great either. Like, Genty is more of a sure thing than any of the rest of that, but at the same time, there's a lot of production you'd have to replace if you move those three guys.
Yeah, that's the biggest question mark I have, Ryan, too, is just what Coach is saying. Do you have the depth to make this trade? Because if you make it and, you sacrifice a lot of your team right here, then you're going to put yourself in the hole. And, as much as Genty is going to be an awesome player that we believe, and, we're very hopeful that if he gets a good landing spot like the Bears, and I know Coach would love that. He's a Bears fan. I'm not sure it's going to make up for losing Breece, Etienne, and Ayuk/Olave if all three of those guys are currently starters for you.
Now, I'll say this. I would rather have Genty than Breece and Etienne. So the question to me comes back to, do you have the wide receiver depth to replace if you lost an Ayuk or an Olave? Do you have that wide receiver depth? If so, then to me, I would consider making the deal.
And my other issue is I'm not sure Breece is too far off the 101. I think you could probably take Breece and Etienne and make an argument for Genty. I don't think it's too far off. They might want a small plus, and I would be willing to do that. If the difference is a third and you have that much conviction in Genty, then you should do it. But it just comes down to your team. I don't think I'd throw the plus of Ayuk or Olave on there just because it almost feels like you're overpaying and giving them a free player.
So let me ask this, Matt. If you flipped it, and you had the 101, would you move the 101 for that package?
I would be interested, yes. And that would be very hard to do. I mean, if I'm sitting with the 101 and I have a team that I think is, not just a running back away, but a depth wide receiver away, then yeah, I'd probably be pretty interested, because if you're telling me that with Breece you can get even 80% of the production of Genty, and again, that's all projections. We've never seen Genty play it down in the NFL. We've seen Breece be a top 5 back. Then I feel like if I could get that depth, I would be interested in it, because I'm trying to win. And if that gives me pieces to go and win, then I'm going to do it. Like, Genty's great, but he's still just one player.
Yeah, I get it. I'm with you. It makes sense.
Yeah. Well, thanks for the question, Ryan. If you got any more, just let us know. We're happy to go through it and walk through our thought process too. But Coach, let's jump to our next player, which is going to be interesting if we still have Joe in here from who we were talking about before. But let's talk about Ricky Pearsall, Coach. Wide receiver for the 49ers. Interesting first season with the injuries. He got shot in the offseason. All sorts of things happened to the guy. But when he played pretty well. He's only 24 years old, out of Florida. It was his first year. Going into year 2, we've got Debo gone. There's the controversy swirling around Brandon Ayuk. Is he staying? Is he going? Is Jawan Jennings going to be the other guy, be the running mate with him? His value is just very interesting to me. He's somewhere around that 201 to 203 range again. Very similar to Brandon Ayuk. So, Coach, let me kick it to you. This is one of your favorite players. You've been screaming about him all offseason and last season too. What are you doing with Brandon Ayuk? Or excuse me, Ricky Pearsall.
Yeah, Ricky Pearsall. Yeah. So Ricky Pearsall is a guy to me. I'm gonna try to go buy him if I can. Obviously, no Deebo Samuel really matters. The final 2 games last year, he had 14 catches and I believe 18 targets, 210 yards and 2 touchdowns in his final 2 games. So he proved in those 2 games that he can produce. To me, either Jawan Jennings or Pearsall, one of these 2 guys is getting ready to blow up. Like, one of them is going to boom big time this year. And I think you can go get either one of them. Like, I would look to try to acquire either of those guys. But Pearsall being the younger of the 2 players, like, I really like Ricky Pearsall.
Yeah, there's a lot to like too. I mean, in week 17, when he played 70% of the snaps, he had 10 targets for 8 catches, 141 yards, and a touchdown. In week 18 against Arizona, he had 92% of the snaps, 8 targets, 6 catches, 70 yards, and a touchdown. So when he got his opportunity and he was out there, he played well. And losing Debo, I think, really, really matters in this situation. We'll have to see Brandon Ayuk's health, but Debo is certainly someone that was involved in this offense when he was on the field. If Pearsall gets more opportunity, I think it's just going to lead to him having big plays. And he has the ability to make that. I mean, he's fantastic hands, a really solid route runner. You know, he was someone that we talked about in rookie drafts last year, of someone we were targeting. It seemed like a value. A guy drafted so high was being drafted in the middle to late second round of fantasy rookie drafts.
I mean, this was a guy that went in the first round of the NFL draft, and then he gets drafted mid-second round in most dynasty rookie drafts. Then his final 2 games of the year last year, he has 210 yards receiving. Then you find out that Debo's gone in the offseason, which makes you think they must believe in Jennings and Pearsall, you know, and that just has me like, man, I want to get this guy, especially when I can go get him for what I think could be really cheap again, considering his potential.
Yeah, and I think you can almost just re-roll the pick of where he was going last year. I mean, if you got a mid-second and your team has a lot of players and not necessarily a lot of holes, that's someone I would be interested in going to acquire. Because if he performs well, his value is going to shoot up, and he's going to definitely make you a ton of value on your roster, whether you hold him or move him for something else down the road. It's just a player I think we should be trying to add on our teams. He's only 24. He's tied to Brock Purdy. He's with a fantastic coach who's going to scheme him open. I mean, we've seen Brandon Ayuk have success. We've seen Debo have success. I don't see why we can't see Ricky Pearsall have some of that same success.
Yeah, and when you look at the draft this coming year, like, there's not a lot of guys, wide receiver guys, going in round 2 that you're going to feel really great about. Like, I would feel much better about having Ricky Pearsall than any second-round receiver that I'm going to draft.
Yeah, let's just talk about the names. Would you rather have Jaden Higgins or Brandon or Ricky Pearsall?
Pearsall. I mean,
yeah,
Pearsall.
Me too. Yeah, it's just that's kind of be your question that you have to ask yourself. Would you rather have those second-round wide receivers, like Coach said? And I think most of them are just uncertainty, or definitely have flaws in their profiles. And Pearsall is a guy, like you said, that has the investment from this team. And you could argue maybe they made that pick because they didn't think that they would get Brandon Ayuk or have Debo together this past season. But one of them is gone. Debo is gone. He's in Washington. Ayuk is still rumored to be moved. So there's a world where Ricky Pearsall steps into a huge workload.
Well, I also think in Dynasty rookie drafts, a lot of the receivers that are going to be drafted this coming year in the second round are guys that you would have been taking in the third round in the last couple of years in rookie drafts. So keep that in mind when you're thinking about whether you want to go try to acquire Pearsall.
Yeah, I think we're both in the same boat here. We're both buying Ricky Pearsall. The value just seems too good right now. There's a lot to like about his profile and the situation that he's in. So he's someone that I think we're going to try and add to our teams, and maybe the team we co-manage, we go make a move. We should talk about that after this. But let's just jump to our next player, Coach, and that's going to be Brenton Strange, the tight end from Jacksonville. He's kind of coming into his own. Evan Ingram's out. We've got Trevor Lawrence, who's should step into that starting role, and this is the year to prove it. He's got a new coach in Cohen, who helped make Cade Otton's career in Tampa Bay. So, Coach, let me kick it to you. Is Brenton Strange a buy or a sell for you?
Oh, yeah, man. I am buying Brenton Strange everywhere I can. I have talked about Brenton Strange to Matt over and over and over again. Like, I really like this guy. No Evan Ingram. Trevor Lawrence has shown time and time again in the past that he loves throwing the ball to tight ends. His new tight end, Brenton Strange, his role is going to increase significantly. The GM has been raving about him. Cohen was on radio the other day raving about him. This guy is going to do a lot of big things, I think, in Jacksonville. I think his quote was, Brenton Strange will have a role in this offense in ways we haven't seen yet. The GM raved about his blocking and his unwillingness to go down when he gets the ball in his hands. Even when he came out of Penn State, this was a guy whose combine numbers weren't through the roof. He ended up going on day 2 still, I believe. At the same time, the guy's just a football player. Like, Brenton Strange can play. He's going to get his opportunity. Like you said, Cohen made Cade Otton last year, and I really think Strange is going to have the same type of impact in Jacksonville this year.
Yeah, and to your point, I mean, getting the credit of not only his coach but the GM is certainly interesting. Now, Jacksonville's in a position where, they could take a guy like Tyler Warren 5th overall, but I don't think that's going to happen. If Strange is their guy, then he's somebody we should be getting in fantasy football. And he's also really cheap. He's not going to cost you a ton. You can go send a random third and probably go and get him. I mean, he's only 24. He's got the backing of the GM, backing of the coach. Trevor Lawrence has a history of throwing to the tight end. He's absolutely something you should try and get on your team. Coach, I as much as we hate on Trevor Lawrence and the Jacksonville offense, there's fantasy value there right now. There just is.
Yeah, there's a lot, and I'm a little frustrated at myself over the Brenton Strange thing, because I should have been making offers for him sooner. His price tag's gone up a little bit. Like, at the end of the year, everybody should have been offering thirds for this guy if they could. Now I'd say probably it's going to take somewhere in a second to go get Brenton Strange. But still, again, like mid-seconds, late seconds, offer those things up for Brenton Strange, because there's not players out there that are going to produce more for you, I don't think, than he is.
Yeah, and when we look what opportunity he had this past season, obviously Evan Ingram had some injuries, so he missed some time. When Strange played more than 80% of the snaps, he scored double-digit points both weeks. So 2 times. In the weeks where he played more than 70% of the snaps, he averaged almost 9 points per game. That's pretty good, given a guy who didn't necessarily have the full runway to go out there and be the full-time tight end. So if we give him the opportunity to really go out there and have a full offseason with Trevor Lawrence and be the guy, I think that matters. And I think he's going to be a guy that's going to have fantasy production. I mean, where he's sitting right now, he's akin to like the tight end 20 overall. He's absolutely much than a lot of those names. Would you rather have Chiga Okonkwo or Brenton Strange?
Oh, Brenton Strange, without a doubt.
Yeah. Would you rather have Michael Mayer or Brenton Strange?
Strange. It's not even close.
These are names that are ahead of him right now. So I think there's value out there to go and get him. Coach and I don't always align. We argue about a lot of things, but we're totally in agreement. unless they draft someone with significant capital or meaningful capital, Brenton Strange is the guy. And he should be the one that we're going out and targeting because he's so cheap and he could absolutely develop into something that you use for your fantasy team or flip down the road.
And this offense is going to improve, guys. You got to remember that. Like things were so bad in Jacksonville last year. The offense, Cohen's going to do a better job on offense. I do think this offense is going to improve significantly. Now, I'm not saying they're going to be a top 10 offense in the league. They're going to improve a lot. And if this offense is good, when Trevor Lawrence plays well, he's throwing the ball to his tight ends.
Yeah, totally agree. I think it couldn't be much worse than it was. I mean, obviously they had Mac Jones in there for a while, and things were just bad in Jacksonville, coaching-wise, ownership-wise with the GM and whether he's staying or going and doesn't have the backing. It was just a disaster all the way around. So they've got a clean slate, and I think Brenton Strange is going to be the guy that gets he's going to be the benefactor of that for the most part. But let's just jump to Joe's question here, Coach. He says, who's your favorite rookie sleeper for fantasy right now? So take a second, think about that, and let's try and think of who might be a rookie sleeper for us. I'll start with a guy in the second round for me that I think is kind of under the radar and has a ton of upside, and that's Trey Harris. I mean, the guy can do absolutely everything. He had an injury this past season, so he only played in about 8 games, I believe it was, but he is absolutely spectacular. He has a very, very high ceiling, and he's a guy that's currently going to mid to late second round of rookie drafts.
Yeah, and I want to mention something too when it comes to rookie sleepers for fantasy. The landing spot matters significantly. Like it really, really does. It is so hard to have a favorite depending on where they're drafted. Like we didn't really think a whole lot about Tyrone Tracy this time last year, and then when we saw that he got drafted by the Giants, then we knew there's potential that they can get on the field early. And when that happens, then all of a sudden they have an opportunity to produce. For me, I think Elijah Arroyo, the tight end out of Miami, is going to be a good player. Like I really like him. I think that he has a lot of potential there. That's a guy that stands out to me. Just before any landing spots.
Yeah, Arroyo's got a ton of athleticism, and if he goes to a nice landing spot, like, can you imagine him in like Cincinnati? That'd be really interesting to me. Like pairs with a good pocket passer. And he's a fighter, man. You see him on tape. I wouldn't say he's the best blocker, but he plays his butt off every snap. I respect that.
Yeah, no doubt. He's going to fight. He's going to fight. He may, like you said, he's not the greatest blocker, but he's not the bad one either because he fights so hard.
So we've talked about a wide receiver. We've talked about a tight end. I'm going to throw a running back out there, and I'm going to make you think of a quarterback, Coach. So I'm going to say DJ Giddens, the running back from Kansas State. He's not too flashy, not a ton of athleticism, but his tape is just good. It's really clean. I mean, he can do absolutely everything. If he cleans up his hands, he'll be an absolute weapon for a team. He's got solid vision. I could totally see him getting drafted in the 3rd round, towards the end of that. And if he finds himself in a good landing spot, he can compete. And we've got to remember that it's all about who is in that backfield. Like Coach said, landing spot matters so much in these situations. So try and find that value where you can, because to Coach's credit, Tyrone Tracy was an absolute steal given the fact that he went to New York and his competition was Devin Singletary, and we saw what he did. He won that backfield. Now, is he going to keep it? That's another question, but he at least had it for a year.
Yeah, I'm with you there. So if I'm thinking of a quarterback, for me, I'm thinking Kyle McCord. I like him. He threw for almost 4,800 yards and 34 touchdowns at Syracuse last year. They let him stand in a pocket and rip that ball. He's got a lot of potential. He does have some flaws. Not the world's greatest athlete at times, and there are things in there that you don't love. Tends to put the ball in harm's way, through 12 interceptions. But at the same time, he got the opportunity to stand back there and go through progressions and throw the ball a lot, especially coming from where he had been in Ohio State to the system in Syracuse. He got the opportunity to stand back there and throw it a lot in the pocket. Now, a lot of times that translates more to the NFL than people realize as well. So I think there's a chance in the right spot. This is a backup guy initially. If he ever gets the right opportunity, maybe there's something there.
Yeah, I mean, your hope is he turns into a guy kind of like Gardner
Mhm.
Minshew, which absolutely has value in
Mhm.
fantasy terms because we see that these spot start quarterbacks or guys that kind of get like a couple weeks in a row where they're the guy that becomes fantasy value at times. You can flip those for thirds or seconds, and both
Mhm.
of us have done that several times, and I'm sure we'll do it again because we hold some of these quarterbacks because especially in super flex leagues, they just become so valuable so quickly.
Yep, no doubt. I've been off and on the Minshews and Aiden O'Connell's multiple times in the last couple of years. Just having another guy that you might have to put in a game.
Yeah. Well, hey, Joe, we appreciate all the questions. Thanks, Albert, for being in here. We've kind of gone through several different players, answered some of y'all's questions. Coach, is there anybody else out there that you're thinking about adding or moving on your dynasty rosters right now?
Nobody that really jumps off. Well, I'll say this: Alvin Kamara. That's the first one that pops in my head. Like I'm trying to get off of Alvin Kamara if at all possible right now. Just on age and his production is going to go down. I think there's a chance they move in Kendry Miller and get another running back, some more burn there. And Kamara's age just starting to scare me. Just not quite the same player he was.
Yeah, I mean,
But
it's
he's
going to be
still, but
interesting
he's
moving
still good
forward.
enough to help a contending team as well.
Absolutely. Totally agree. Hey, Scott jumps in here, coach, and he says, Clemson fan, Lawrence loves his tight end Strange as a tight end 2 or 3 late pick. I'll be a happy drafter. Hey, man, we both will be too. I know both of us have several shares. Coach made an effort to go and get him at the close of the season. So it's going to be interesting to see if he can remain that guy. We'll have to, sit tight and watch that first round. But if he survives the first round, then I think it's wheels up.
Yep, absolutely.
All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for us unless we have any other last minute questions here. It's been nice chatting with everybody. Be sure to like the stream, comment below if you've got a player you want us to come back and talk about. We certainly will. So, like the stream, be sure to subscribe to the Faceoff Sports Network, and we'll catch you next time.